All right, let's talk MVP. So I made a pretty similar video to this earlier. I had 10 quarterback candidates. At that point, I've now narrowed down to field a pretty decent chunk to just 4 candidates. But I'm going to go through some advanced statistics and talk about who I believe deserves to be MVP, what numbers suggest, and I think how you can make an argument for each of these 4 candidates that I'm going to talk about. So first, who are the candidates and what numbers are we going to go over? So these are the 4: Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, Lamar Jackson, and Jaden Daniels. I'm throwing him in there as well. You'll see why as we get into some of these numbers. If you're curious as to why am I not including running backs, listen, what about Saquon Barkley? Listen, I understand that it's very fun to discuss players who are not quarterbacks. The reality is pretty much every metric that I've looked at, I've looked at models of trying to determine positional value. The most generous in favor of running backs say they're often worth at best about a win, which to be clear is a lot. That's a lot more than it sounds. But for quarterbacks, there's metrics that say they can be worth 5 wins or even more than that. Quarterbacks just matter so much that I just don't think of running back as ever actually the most valuable player. Now, should that be the exact way we do it for the award? I don't know. But that's how I view it. It's called MVP, most valuable player. I'm going to be discussing this video who I think has been the most valuable player to their team. So first, the numbers. Let's start off with just a pretty simple one. Pro Football Focus grade, right? Pretty simple. You see all 4 of these guys are pretty high on the list. They're all in the top 5. The other one was Herbert, which Herbert and Goff were the 2 I initially had on the list and actually cut just for simplicity's sake. Herbert, really good at efficiency stats, but just kind of doesn't have a ton of volume. Goff, really good kind of like bulk stats, but his advanced stats not so good. The underlying numbers maybe not as good as the passer rating, so I cut those 2 guys. But anyway, yeah, I mean, you see Lamar's 1, Burrow's 2, Allen's 3, and Daniels is 5. I mean, not a huge jump here. We kind of get all that. The next stat we're going to look at is EPA per play, which is actually one of the biggest ones. This is the stat that tends to have the biggest correlation to who actually wins the award. You see where each of them rank. Again, just a quick understanding of the stat if you're not aware of what it is. It's estimated points added per play. It essentially looks at each game situation, and when the quarterback takes a snap, what is the, before the play and after the play, what was the win probability added or subtracted from that play. So it's a team stat just as much as it is a quarterback stat, similar to passer rating. I kind of think it's like a better passer rating, but you see Allen is first in this category, and he's currently the odds-on favorite to win MVP. So again, this tends to have the highest correlation towards it. You see Lamar Jackson just only a couple spots behind. He's currently in 3rd right now. Daniels remains top 5 in this category as well. Burrow's team hasn't quite been as good in these situations, even if PFF says he's been a little bit better. There's also a way to extrapolate it to a total EPA kind of win total. Is essentially almost like a war type thing that you can create if you want to, which I did. You see here, Allen's at 4.9. He's leading the way here, which again makes sense. But Lamar not too far behind at 4.2 wins added. Burrow 3.5 wins added, and Daniels 3.4 wins added. Is worth noting as well, Burrow has had significantly more snaps, which you could look at as a negative. Oh, it's taken him more snaps and he still hasn't gotten the win totals. You can also look at it as a positive and say, well, he's been a bigger part of the team. They need him to throw the ball more because they don't have as much else. Obviously the other 3 teams have a running game. Burrow is really kind of his whole offense. So you could discuss that if you want to. Next stat is going to be completion percentage over expected, which essentially goes as what makes sense, right? It essentially is completion percentage, but accounts for like game situations. So on deep passes, you should on average get this much per expected, and then how much above or below do you get? That's how that stat works, and let's see where everyone ranks. This is the Burrow category. Burrow currently is 3rd here. Lamar Jackson is shortly behind at 5. Daniels continues to be really good in all these categories. Now you're kind of seeing why I put him on the list, right? He's 8th here. And then Allen, this is where we start to see Allen falter a little bit. And that's why I think he's such an interesting figure in this race. Because, like I said, he's first in the key category, the EPA per play. 17th, though, in completion percentage over expected, which isn't a huge deal. Certainly, when it comes to getting votes, I don't think that stat really matters at all. But in terms of getting my vote that I don't have, it kind of does matter, right? So that's how I view that. This next category I think is the most interesting. It's turnover-worthy play rate, which I think we all know what that is at this point. You see Lamar Jackson is the best in the league at protecting the football. Daniel's not too far behind at third. Burrow was second for a while. He's fallen down to seventh, but still really good for someone who's, sixth best in EPA per play. And Allen has fallen to 17th in terms of turnover-worthy play rate. So this is what I find so fascinating, is historically, this is where voters get screwed up a lot of the times, in my opinion. If you remember back in 2021, there was a situation where Tom Brady actually was better at protecting the football in terms of turnover-worthy play rate than Aaron Rodgers, but Brady had significantly more turnovers than Aaron Rodgers because there is a lot of flukiness that goes into turnovers. So because of that, part of why Aaron Rodgers won the award was his touchdown to interception ratio. Despite the fact that Brady probably should have had a better touchdown to interception ratio, it was just sort of like, the defenders caught the passes that he threw at them and didn't catch the ones that Rodgers threw at them, right? That was one example. Another example of this was actually just last season. So there's been this whole narrative shift where people keep saying that, all of a sudden, everybody was on the bandwagon of Josh Allen deserved MVP last year. All of a sudden, everyone's saying that's how we felt. I made a video saying that I thought Josh Allen deserved MVP last year. I was crushed in the comments. People were saying I was being disrespectful. I think someone called it disgusting. I was getting called a Lamar hater, and I love Lamar. I just thought Allen was better last year. But what's interesting is that the same thing that worked against Allen last year is working for him this year. You see his turnover-worthy play rate, 17th in the league, which isn't horrible, again, especially considering how many big-time throws he makes and all that stuff. But 17th in the league, that's right around where it was last year. But last year, he was horribly unlucky with turnovers. He had a lot of bad turnover luck. This year, he's been very lucky. He only has 2 more interceptions than Lamar Jackson, despite putting the ball in harm's way, significantly more than Lamar. So from my perspective, this should be a significant argument in favor of Lamar Jackson. The fact that he does have, not just first in PFF grade, third in EPA per play, but also first in turnover-worthy play rate. When you consider how close they are in a lot of the EPA stuff, and he's been, Lamar's earned his, only 4 interceptions, Allen hasn't, that should swing it towards Lamar probably. But if you're a Bills fan, you're saying, well, wait a second. That didn't count last year. Last year, when Allen was unlucky, no one cared, and he got taken out of the conversation. It wouldn't be fair now to not let him get the award. So I think consistency-wise, you probably shouldn't factor this in if you're a voter who didn't factor it in last year. But again, I factored it in last year, so I'm factoring it in this year as well. But it's just interesting. Again, people forget, Josh Allen was 4th in MVP voting last year. Dak Prescott was higher than Josh Allen last year in MVP voting. So, I think there's some revisionist history about last year. But yeah, let's move on. Finally here, passer rating, which I didn't realize Allen was only 10th here. That's weird, because usually the person leading here is the one who ends up, at least not always winning it, but usually you're pretty high. So the fact that he's 10th is a little surprising, but again, passer rating isn't my favorite stat. It just isn't. It's not a bad stat. I think it's probably the best stat of the traditional box score stats to use, but it's a team stat at the end of the day. That being said, Lamar Jackson's first is still very good. Burrow's third is still very good. Daniels and Allen, this is kind of weak spots for them at 9 and 10. So as a whole, my rank now I'm going to rank these, this situation. And I really do believe that these are 4 great quarterback seasons. Last year, kind of the discussion was, do we even have a quarterback deserving of an MVP? This year, we have at least 3, and I think Daniels might have won it last year with the season he had, although, again, so much of it is narrative as well. But, there's a lot of really good stuff here. Who do I think deserves it this year? This is my ranking. I'm leaning Lamar. I am. And I think it's really close between them. There was, made this video earlier. I said Lamar. Then Allen had that game against the Rams. And I was kind of like, that was such a good game. That helped out his numbers so much. There was so much value in that game. I'm kind of on the Josh Allen thing. I think he slightly took the lead there, but I think Lamar Jackson has chipped away. So I think there's a chance, depending on how the next 2 games go, that I could still say, you know what, give me Josh Allen when this is all said and done. As of right now, though, I don't even have him at 2. It's so close, though, between him and Burrow. I think those guys are neck and neck. My reasoning here is essentially, I care about turnover-worthy plays. I don't view it as, well, it's a play that didn't happen. I view it as, it's film study, right? I mean, if we're simply only talking stuff that did happen, let's just give it to whoever, whichever quarterback is on the highest scoring offense every year. That's not how I do this. I do pay attention to, how much of it was because of the quarterback. And in my opinion, if Lamar Jackson throws a pass that gets intercepted and Josh Allen throws a pass that doesn't get intercepted but hits a defender right in the hands, they both had the same negative value on those plays. It's just the defense either took advantage of it or didn't. I think the value is still the same. That's just how I view it. And when you factor in the fact that Lamar Jackson, even with not getting the turnover luck that Allen has gotten this season, is still nearly keeping pace with all of the the stats like EPA. That's kind of crazy to think about. So, I don't think it's a lock. And again, you could make the argument, hey, at the end of the day, most efficient offense is the Bills' passing attack. Let's just give it to him. I would still lean Lamar Jackson here. I would. I think the reason why I put Burrow over Allen as well is, I think, very similar, although I would say there's a smaller jump between those two. I really had to think about those two because it's not quite as, Burrow isn't quite as good in some of those categories as Lamar is. I still like him a little better there, though. So I'm going to go Burrow 2. Again, Bills fans, don't come at me. Hey, I was arguing for Allen last year, so it's not a biased thing. I like Josh Allen a lot, and again, I think there's a lot of a real argument to be made for him. The argument you make is, most efficient offense. There you go. Gonna have to keep him at 3 right now, though. And then Daniels, who was probably just happy to be on this list, if anything. I'm sure Commanders fans are just having fun that I decided to include him here more than anything. But again, he's great in all these categories. He has no real weakness. And I think that would be your argument that you make. The issue is even though he doesn't really have huge weaknesses, Lamar Jackson's pretty much better than him, and Lamar's better than him in literally every category. So there's not really a claim to the throne for Daniels, but he was good enough I wanted to run the numbers and see where he was at. So yeah, those are my top 4 as of right now. Lamar is 1, Burrow 2, Allen 3, and Daniels 4, but it could change as the season progresses. But yeah, those are my thoughts. What are yours? Let me know in the comments below. Always love hearing from you. And of course, as always, thanks for watching.